Well, now that I got Illumination out of the way, there's one more major studio to talk about, and that's 20th Century Fox Animation. Now, you might be thinking, what about Blue Sky? Well, Blue Sky's part of it. You know, up until now, I always talked about Blue Sky as its own entity, but truly, Blue Sky is all part of 20th Century Fox Animation. But it is their flagship studio, and the one that keeps making film after film. Other films that Fox Animation does are films usually done by studios that either go in and out, or they just do it as a one-time thing. Like, for example, you got the Simpsons movie, which is, Gracie Films, Rough Draft, and all the Simpsons crew, but there hasn't been a Simpsons movie 2, though there probably will be. I mean, they've been saying it ever since the first one came out 10 years ago. Yes, it's been 10 years. Feel old yet? Where does the time go? And if they make a Family Guy movie, that'll be Fuzzy Door, all them, Seth MacFarlane, and then you've got things like Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was Wes Anderson, Indian Paintbrush, Regency Entertainment. So 20th Century Fox Animation applies to Blue Sky and all those other productions. So 20th Century Fox Animation recently announced that they were going to ramp up their slate and go beyond the Blue Sky slate. And I want to talk about Blue Sky first because, that's the main attraction. Okay, so Blue Sky. Next year, Ferdinand. I've already talked about Ferdinand. I've also already talked about Anubis, if that still is on track for 2018. And I believe I talked about Pigeon Impossible. If I skipped it, I'm sorry, but here's the short version. I saw the short film, and if they're able to stretch the short film out to 90 minutes, it'll be really fun. But that could go south under the wrong hands and under the wrong circumstances, so hopefully it's more like the first Ice Age and less like one of the Ice Age sequels or Rio 2. More like Ice Age 1 and more like Rio 1. Those are the films that Blue Sky has that have concrete release dates. Other Blue Sky films in development include Mutts, which is based on the comic strip of the same name. It's basically cats and dogs and humor, and it's supposed to be a great comic strip. I've never seen it in any of my local newspapers, and Charles Schultz apparently called it like one of the best comic strips ever, years and years ago. And it makes sense, they adapted the Peanuts, so might as well do Mutts. And the Peanuts movie was a critical success, so they might as well do a Mutts movie. Alienology, it's based on a series of books actually. There's like Dragonology, I think one of them was called Dragonology. It's all book titles ending with ology. And they want to do Alienology, and there's so many directions they can go with that, and hopefully it's an all-animated movie and not a hybrid, and we'll get to that in a minute. And the next one is called Frog Kisser, which is an update of the Frog Prince story, and that one's actually going to be a live-action CG hybrid, and it will officially hurt if that movie makes more money than The Princess and the Frog does. So, about that, 20th Century Fox Animation's new plan is to invest in a bunch of live-action hybrid films, and I believe they're doing this because of their confidence. I believe they're doing this because they're very happy with how the Chipmunks movies all did, much to our horror. They put Nate Hopper, who is a longtime executive and producer, in charge of all these upcoming hybrid films. And the two films in question are The Girl Who Drank the Moon and The Littlest Bigfoot. And both of those are, The Girl Who Drank the Moon was based on a book. I'm not sure if The Littlest Bigfoot is or not. However, live-action animation hybrids aren't the only things in production. They got 3 all-animated movies coming, one of which is Zeta the Space Girl, which is based on this kid-friendly comic book series. Basically, a girl fighting aliens and creatures on another planet in order to save her friend from being sacrificed. And oddly enough, one of the other stories, The Girl Who Drank the Moon, that's also a sacrifice story. The plot of that one, I'm actually kind of lazy. I'm reading it off of what I wrote on my blog. It's about a town that sacrifices newborns to a forest witch who is actually friendly. She raises them and feeds them starlight, but one is accidentally given moonlight, and as a result, that particular child gains magical powers. So that's a very interesting fantasy story. I wish it was an all-animated movie, because this kind of fantasy is what animation is born for, like actual caricature animation, not, hyper-realistic VFX and CGI, nothing like TMNT or Monster Trucks or anything like that. It should be all-animated, but no, hybrid it is. They also have a movie based on Momotaro. From what I've read, it's kind of like a Japanese Percy Jackson in some ways. It seems like it skews the preteen crowd, but if they do it right as a movie, it could get everybody interested. With magic and monsters and such, and as far as I know, it's not a hybrid, so I would like to see how they translate that tale, because I think those kinds of stories are born for animation, and they're not really done too often. You know, you got films like How to Train Your Dragon from time to time. Like, another studio could have easily done How to Train Your Dragon as a live-action movie with really good VFX, but no, it works so well as an all-animated caricature animation film. You know, and I think it wouldn't work in live action. Like, it wouldn't be the same with a CGI creature interacting with live actors. It just works so perfectly as a caricature animation film. So it's good to see that not all of those projects are going to be hybrids. As for Zeta the Space Girl, I like space stuff, so it has potential, and hopefully the animation resembles the art style of the comics. And then the most exciting of the bunch is The Dam Keeper, which is going to be made by the very studio that made the short film of the same name, Tonko House. I've never seen The Dam Keeper, but all the stills I've seen from it, the clips I've seen of it, it's an absolutely beautiful looking short. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it all CGI, or is it sort of a CG 2D combo like Paperman was? If it is all CG, I'm darn impressed. I mean, it really looks like a moving painting. You know, it's very similar to that of the Book of Life, which Fox also distributed. I don't know if Fox is going to distribute future Real Effects films. Right now, Real Effects has Wish Police in development along with a couple other projects, but it hasn't really been announced what distributors are going to be picking those projects up. Rock Dog is being distributed by Lionsgate, and really, Real Effects just did the animation work for that. They're contracted to do it. The movie is really a Chinese production, Mandu Hoyi Brothers production. I hope I pronounced their name right, sorry. So, yeah, anyways, I'm not sure if Real Effects movies are going to be distributed by Fox in the future, but The Dam Keeper as a feature film done by the very studio that did the short, this is very exciting. And hopefully they're able to craft, you know, a story that fits a 90-minute movie, because you know, it's not very easy to take a short film and stretch it out to a feature-length film. I think a good example of this is 9. 9, I've never seen the short, but the animated film was just kind of there, you know? It felt like it could have worked better as a short. It feels like an idea that they stretched out too long and they didn't have any, you know, compelling characters to go with it. But, you know, it was a cool, dare I say, risky attempt to make a PG-13 animated movie and, you know, make it, you know, a mainstream release. It was marketed terribly, and it had, you know, stupid commercials, you know, like, oh, this isn't your little brother's animated movie. Yeah, that totally gives me, an adult, the incentive to go and see it. No, it didn't appeal to anybody. It didn't appeal to kids. It didn't appeal to teenagers, because most teenagers don't go to see animated movies, except, you know, open-minded ones. I was always an open-minded teenager growing up. I never grew out of animation. But, no. Why am I talking about 9? This is about The Dam Keeper. So, The Dam Keeper, it's also interesting because The Dam Keeper was the brainchild of 2 ex-Pixar artists, Robert Kondo and Dice Tsutsumi. It's particularly interesting because Dice Tsutsumi was sort of I don't think he was an art director on Toy Story 3, but he was like one of the head colorists of the movie. And Toy Story 3 had a very striking had a very striking color palette. And so did Monsters University, which I believe Dice also worked on. So there was a lot of that in The Dam Keeper, and hopefully the feature film version has that as well. Now, I'm not sure when any of these are going to be getting release dates. They could get them at any time. Oh, I forgot to talk about Littlest Bigfoot. There seems to be a lot of, like, Bigfoot Yeti stories going around. You got Warner Animation Smallfoot. You've got, DreamWorks Everest, the film that DreamWorks Shanghai unit is making. And now you got this, The Littlest Bigfoot. And it's about a lonely girl who's ignored by her parents and is sent to a boarding school and befriends a Bigfoot who is part of a whole clan of Bigfoots. And I heard that it's very much a story about, you know, finding peace and being different, and one of those outcast friendship kind of stories. So these are all very cool sounding projects, and hopefully they're executed right and that they're pulled off well, and hopefully the all animated ones are something special. It's really cool to see 20th Century Fox ramping it up, because 20th Century Fox only has Blue Sky and the few independent productions that are made for 20th Century Fox. Fox originally had an in-house animation studio, but they shuttered it after the collapse of Titan After Earth at the box office in 2000. I watched that again recently, just a few weeks ago or so, and yeah, that movie, I know it has a huge fan base, but I can see why that movie didn't do well, and it had nothing to do with it being a hand-drawn film, that's for sure. It was just one of those troubled movies from that period that tried way too hard to appeal to a preteen/teenage audience, and it ended up losing everybody altogether. And a lot of other animated movies that were made during that time, Treasure Planet especially, even though Treasure Planet's actually a good movie, a lot of those movies just all crashed and burned. And Titan After Earth, yeah, that was the very movie that ended Fox Animation Studios. So now 20th Century Fox Animation is pretty much Blue Sky and independent productions that they pick up, and productions made by, like The Simpsons crews and all that. So it's very good. So it's very nice to see them beefing up their animation slate, because their deal with DreamWorks ends this summer with the release of Captain Underpants. Boss Baby and Captain Underpants are the last two DreamWorks movies that 20th Century Fox is distributing, and then Universal will start distributing their movies in early 2018. Larrikins will be the first DreamWorks movie to be distributed by Universal. Fox knows that Blue Sky and the few films they have in between aren't enough, so they're going to beef things up, and that's very good. The more the merrier. So long as all the new stuff is good, that is. If it's just stuff I don't care for, then I'll be like, no. But I'm glad to see more animation production ramping up. This is exactly what Paramount has tried to do after they lost DreamWorks back in 2012. They knew that without DreamWorks, they weren't going to have much, so they started their own animation studio, and they're really not off to a good start, because Monster Trucks, they already claimed the right down on that one, and it's opening next week with little to no fanfare. It's already become a meme, arguably. All hail Creech. Just so you know, guys, I'm part of the cult that worships Creech. I've converted. I'm just kidding. No, it's just interesting to see a movie that a distributor claims a massive write-down on months before it comes out. I would talk about Paramount Animation, maybe I should, because, they're a full-fledged studio, and I keep forgetting that they're part of the big guns, because they're taking forever to get into the game. Sponge Out of Water was, okay, I'm gonna save this for the Paramount Ramble. So, back to Fox. So yeah, Fox is ramping up. I'm happy to see them do that, and hopefully the stuff is good. And even though it's more family-friendly stuff, I want to see somebody make family films that kind of rise above the non-Disney, non-Pixar competition and really challenge audiences. Stuff like Rango, stuff like Fantastic Mr. Fox, stuff like How to Train Your Dragon 2, things like that. Films that aren't just passable, animated comedies, or films that really don't challenge the audience, or the young audience in particular. So I wonder if any of those upcoming films, not so much the hybrids, but more the all-animated ones, I wonder if those films are going to be the ones to kick some ass. I don't know. Who knows? Do you know? Are you a time traveler? Can you come back from 2020 to tell me all about it? So yeah, 20th Century Fox Animation. I'm curious to see what Blue Sky has cooking. Whatever happened to Left Turn, by the way? That was another project that Blue Sky was working on. That was supposed to be about birds. Pigeons, if I remember correctly, but I guess Pigeon Impossible has replaced it. I don't know. Also, Spore. They were supposed to do a Spore movie, but I think that's been dead for a while, because when did Spore come out? Like 8-9 years ago? Does anyone really, is it really, not saying that it's outdated, but do people really think about Spore anymore other than fans? I don't know. I guess I'm out of touch, but I don't think they're going to be making the Spore movie. As for an Ice Age continuation, well, Continental Drift, Collision Course, they both begin with a C, forgive me. Collision Course, while it did terribly over here, it did make its money back overseas. Oh, will they make another one? Probably. Or they could just make Rio 3 and call it a day. I'm surprised Rio 3 hasn't been greenlit, because Rio 2 actually did pretty good. Not as much as the first movie domestically, but it actually did good, so I'm actually kind of surprised that Rio 3 hasn't been announced or greenlit or anything. I'm not encouraging them to make it, I'm just saying, I'm surprised. And yeah, if they make another Ice Age, don't be surprised, because again, Part 5 made its money back thanks to the worldwide grosses. I don't know, just... But yeah, Blue Sky's future seems interesting, and I'm very interested to see where 20th Century Fox as a whole heads with animation. I'm really looking forward to The Dam Keeper. I mean, a Dam Keeper feature being handled by a big-time distributor. This is going to be a mainstream wide release. I mean, that's so exciting. As for the other productions, well, I'm on the fence, but they sound like they could all be good. So yeah, 20th Century Fox. Let's see what they're up to.